As I mentioned before, we got a chance to interview James Sapirstein, Chairman, President, and CEO of Azure RX Biopharma, and they are publicly traded under the stock symbol AZRX, and of course their website azurrx.com. I'll put that up on our website so it's not confusing. But once again, I get to hang out with the CEO of a public company for a few minutes. James, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. How are you?
Good. You had a big week. If anybody's, I got a lot of email about you this week because if you take a look at your press releases this week, it's been a pretty big week for you. First of all, I'll take the fun one first, and that's the fact that you get to be a presenter coming up here at the Bio Digital. That's a big deal, isn't it?
It is. I'm also a member of the Bio board, so we've got some great things going on, and I'm happy to be presenting at the conference.
Hey, listen, before I get into your press release earlier in the week that talked about a phase 2 clinical trial, why don't we talk a little bit for the folks that haven't seen you before about exactly what you guys are doing in layman's terms so folks can understand the problem that you're solving and the solution that you've got for it.
Sure. Well, we're a gastroenterology company. Our lead compound is MS-1819 that we're looking at cystic fibrosis for. We had two data readouts this year, one on a monotherapy trial, one on a combination therapy trial. But what I talked to you last time about was another product we licensed in from First Wave Bio called niclosamide, which we're looking at for COVID. And not just to treat COVID, but for those patients who have, as we call the long haulers of COVID, where they have some strong GI issues associated with it. We also have another indication we're about to launch for something called checkpoint inhibitor colitis, and that's coming along very soon.
You know, James, I get a lot of email when you're on the air with us, and a few of the emails I got were regarding, did you plan on having a COVID-related solution, or did it just so happen that one of the things you're working on, in this case, niclosamide, did it just happen to work on COVID as well? And how long did it take to figure that one out, if so?
Yeah, it happened to just work for COVID itself. And we found out through a publication from the Pasteur Institute of Korea, where they published some guidelines in terms of looking at older products that have been used in the past and how they act versus COVID. So niclosamide was at the top of the list, and we just happened to have it available. So we started testing it. And as you indicated before, our first patient came in earlier this week, and I'm proud to say we've got more patients that came in as well.
Yeah, and the good news there is that means the ball's moving forward. And even though that the FDA has had their hands full, obviously, with COVID vaccinations and obviously COVID response, they've been able to keep the ball rolling with you folks as well. Here's one of the other issues that we have to talk about, and that's the point that you mentioned cystic fibrosis last time you were on the air with us, and that caused a whole lot of people emails asking, what are you doing in regards to that malady, because that affects a lot of people here in the U.S.
Right. So most people think of cystic fibrosis patients as having only pulmonary problems, but they are also born with gastrointestinal problems. They're not able to digest their food properly and absorb the nutrients they need in order to grow and get stronger. And a lot of these kids are on multiple medications, and they take porcine-derived enzymes that have come from crushed up pig pancreases, and they take anywhere from 20 to 45 capsules a day. We have a synthetic program that we're looking at, which is made from yeast. It's much closer to the human enzyme. It's a lot less capsules, and it's going to compete with the porcine-derived enzymes to help these young people absorb their nutrients better.
James, by the way, James Sapirstein is our guest today. He's the chairman, president, CEO of Azure RX Biopharma. AZRX is their stock symbol. They are publicly traded, and I'll put the website up on our website as well, and we'll also put it out to our social media followers. But as a clinical stage biopharma company, I have to ask, do you always sort of think in the future of what's in the clinical pipeline, or do you just concentrate on what's in front of you that we know is working, and then once that's done, you move on to the next level? How does that work for you?
I think you're always looking 3 to 4 years ahead. What's in the pipeline, how you're going to compete. Products, sometimes, as your listeners know, I mean, a lot of products don't make it, right? One out of a million make it. And lots of times it just happens to be that the market's changed and the price points aren't there, the market accessibility is not there. So companies make a decision to kill off a program just because they're not going to it's not going to be profitable or it's not going to be helpful towards patients because the pipeline's filled. However, with MS-1819, we're the only game on the block right now. So we're pretty bullish. Also, with niclosamide, I should say we have a micronized version of it. We're not only looking at COVID, we're looking at myriad of indications, and we're also going to be the only ones on the block. So we're excited.
Well, if you think about MS-1819 being the only guys on the block, is that something that you guys will eventually take to market, or will you pass the ball off to a bigger biopharma company?
I think we'll have to pass it off to a bigger pharma company. The main competitor is AbbVie. AbbVie is one of the largest companies in the world. We're simply too small to compete against them. However, there are a variety of gastroenterology companies, mid-size and larger, who have been speaking to us about our compound and potential licensure.
James, how do you think the biopharma, especially clinical stage companies, are going to change as a result of COVID? Obviously, we have a demarcation point in March of 2020 for everyone. You guys are under a pretty tight microscope anyway, not your company personally, but every company in that space. Do you think it'll change for the better, for the worse? Will it be more arduous, or do you think it'll be just about the same going forward here?
I actually think it's going to be more arduous for your other investors, for your investors who invest in homes, for instance. You're seeing the price of wood go up, so there's supply issues around the whole world. There's supply issues with delivery, chain of custody, all those types of things. So some of my friends who are CEOs are having trouble getting supplies to make their products. So I think it's going to be more arduous and more expensive in the coming years because of COVID. It's just it's kind of like a pressure on the hose.
It'll change everybody. James, thank you so much. Can't wait to talk to you again. James Sapirstein is his name, Chairman, President, CEO of AzureRx Biopharma. AzureRx.com is their website. AZRX is their stock symbol.